very good morning. You're watching our rolling coverage on Uttar Pradesh going to polls in Phase 5. Let's break it down for our viewers on what to expect. 61 constituencies, viewers, spread across 12 districts are going to polls in the 5th phase of UP elections. We're going to beaming out pictures live coming in from Prayagraj, Amethi, Ayodhya, Sirathu. These are hot constituencies. We're going to break it down seat by seat in each of these constituencies. But the 5th phase of polling on as we speak. Let's quickly get you up to speed with what the voter turnout is. Still now 8% voter turnout till about 9 a.m., which is at least till now 2.3% lesser than what it was in 2017. A lot of eyes on the voting percentage as it goes through the course of the day. It was followed in Phase 4 as well. Will Uttar Pradesh in Phase 5 vote at par to what it voted in 2017? Till now, viewers, the voting percentage is 8%. These are the latest visuals coming in from Amethi. From Amethi, these visuals coming in from Amethi. Amethi, the bastions of the Gandhis. The last couple of days, both Rahul Gandhi and Priyanka Gandhi have been campaigning. These are coming in from Ayodhya. Ayodhya is where the Ram temple issue is rife. When you do report through Ayodhya, there is echo, especially from a lot of people who seem to support the BJP in terms of bringing the temple to Ayodhya. These visuals coming in from Prayagraj. Prayagraj, viewers, let's, 12 constituencies. One of the mammoth district in terms of constituencies. This is Bahraich, where visuals coming in, 7 constituencies in Bahraich going into vote this morning. We continue to get our viewers the very latest, but let's quickly cut across to our guests this morning. I have Javed Ansari, political analyst, Sandeep Shastri, who's joining me there as well. Javed, break it down for us. 5th phase of polling, all eyes on voting percentage. Right now it seems to be 8%, but in terms of districts, very, very important districts going into polls this morning. You have Ayodhya, you have Amethi, you have the constituency of the Deputy CM, Keshav Prasad Maurya. We're going to be playing out that reaction very soon.
Yes, indeed it is. Look, of the 61 seats, the BJP had 150. Now, even under normal circumstances, repeating this performance would be a tall order. This time, they are facing a resurgent opposition in the form of SP led by Mr. Akhilesh Yadav. So the battle is on. And there are many, and this includes people, senior journalists like you, who believe that the battle for Uttar Pradesh will be decided in Purvanchal in the last couple of rounds. This is in many ways a stronghold of the BJP, both in terms of the fact that, Ayodhya is there. It also figures Mr. Yogi Adityanath's bastion of Gorakhpur. Also the fact that the social combination seems to be tilted in favor of the BJP, because although there's been a depletion in the other backward castes, one crucial segment, the Nishads, continue to rally around the BJP. The BJP has managed to hold on to them, managed to placate them, and here they count for a lot. In the by-elections, in the early days of Mr. Adityanath's chief ministership, prior to the 2019 parliamentary elections, the SP-BSP combined had put up a nishad and they had won the Gorakhpur seat. Mr. Yogi Adityanath appears to have learnt his lessons, and he's closed his flanks. He's brought in the nishads, and then he's covered up this loophole. So it will be very interesting. Mr. Maurya's seat is Mr. Maurya is contesting from Sirathu. All indications are that he's facing a tough battle this time. The Gandhis who are hoping that they'll be able to at least win back Amethi. It remains to be seen whether that will be possible. They've made a lot of effort. Smriti Irani there also. In neighboring Pratapgarh, Raja Bhaiya and Aradhana Tiwari, Pramod Tiwari's daughter, they are winning. That's one seat which you can say with a fair degree of certainty that the Congress will come out victorious. So a lot riding on this. This is one round where the BJP would perhaps hope to do better than what it has in the previous rounds. But like I said, 50 out of 61, they'd be very, very happy if they repeat it. But conventional wisdom would seem to suggest that that would be a tall order.
All right, Javed, stay with me. I want to cut across to Sandeep Shastri. Sandeep, break it down with, for us in terms of districts that are going to polls. Ayodhya, extremely important. Even if we look at, past history, Ayodhya, Prayagraj, Amethi as well. Amethi, 5 seats, 4 were taken by the BJP in 2017, 1 where the SP stands. Ayodhya, there was a complete rout where the BJP won all seats the last time around.
Very right, Preeti. This is a very interesting phase which saw the BJP and its allies getting 50 of the seats and Congress just clutching on to 1 seat. And therefore, today's contest is crucial. As I keep saying, we need to remember that the last time the BJP was the challenger and not the defender. The SP was the defender, the BJP was the challenger. This time there is a role reversal. The BJP is the defender because they have been in power and need to defend their track record. So as Javed ji said, it will be interesting to see whether they are able to once again repeat that spectacular performance of last time, keeping in mind this different situation. Secondly, I also would draw attention to the fact that while the Nishad vote is critical in this phase, I also would mention that in 2019 Lok Sabha elections, if the BJP did exceedingly well in this region, it was because of the non-Yadav OBC vote that they were able to get in very significant numbers, besides the votes of the upper caste and the dominant groups. So I think whether the BJP is able to retain that non-Yadav backward caste vote is something that will be seen today, whether that is something that is really possible. Thirdly, the point you raised about voter turnout in this phase. This phase consists of areas where traditionally there has been a lower voter turnout as compared to other areas. So does it match up to what has been found in other areas this time, or will it retain its lower voter turnout is an interesting factor. Last 2 points, Preeti. I would personally believe that the maximum mileage that the BJP could have got through the Ayodhya issue has already been got, and I see no scope of expanding that vote today. And finally, this round of voting is also going to see several ministers of the BJP government, including their deputy chief minister, in the fray. And there are reports which are stating that while ministers do face certain anti-incumbency in their constituencies, will the larger support which the leadership of the BJP enjoys pull them through will be another test that you have taking place today. So I think for me, these are the 4 or 5 things I would look out for as part of today's voting pattern.
We're going to be looking at the Nishad factor, especially playing out in 2 constituencies of Pratapgarh and even Prayagraj. What is interesting to note as of now, viewers, is that, with what Mr. Shastri was also saying, it's an important election with many key players in the UP cabinet. Siddharth Singh, Keshav Prasad Maurya being tested today. Let's cut across to Keshav Prasad Maurya speaking to my colleague just a short while ago, and then we'll come back to our panelists.
पूरे विश्वास से कह सकता हूं कि बहुत बड़ी जीत 2017 के नंबर से भी अधिक जीत हमारी होने जा रही है।
लेकिन विपक्ष खासतौर से अखिलेश कह रहा है कि असली मुद्दों पे बीजेपी आती नहीं है, दूसरे मुद्दे उठाती है, बेरोजगारी है, महंगाई है, सबसे बड़े
कर लेना। मैं तो श्री अखिलेश यादव जी से कहता हूं, भाषण देके ना भागे, आओ मुझसे बहस कर लें, जो उनके पास मुद्दे उस पर बहस कर लें। कुछ किए नहीं, सत्ता से बेदखल कर दिए गए जनता के द्वारा, हमने नहीं हटाया, जनता ने हटाया, और बार बार वापस आने के तरीके अपनाते हैं। बसपा से भी समझौता करके कोशिश कर लिए, नहीं आ पाए, तो हम उनको सत्ता पे नहीं बैठा देंगे ना। हम तो जनता की सेवा के लिए, जनता ने हमें जिम्मेदारी दी है, हम उसको निभाएंगे।
सोच करके डाला है कि उनको बहुत भारी मतों से जिताना है और जीत भी रहे हैं। भगवान से यही प्रार्थना है कि मेरे देवर जी जीत के आगू होए, जैसे आंधी चलती है उस तरह कमल खिले।
All right, Keshav Prasad Maurya there speaking to India Today. A lot of the big guns where the Bharatiya Janata Party is concerned being tested. What you see on screen right now is Rita Bahuguna Joshi, a fair amount of influence where Prayagraj is concerned, where the Brahmin vote is concerned. What you see is, this is Raja Bhaiya from Kunda. There you can see visuals of him as well. I want to cut across right now to our reporters as well as our guests who are joining us live. All right, we also have Abhishek Sudhir, who's coming in as a political analyst. He is an advocate. Abhishek Sudhir, this is a very 61 constituencies going to vote this morning. Important, where the Samajwadi Party is concerned to make inroads, because this is where the BJP would hope to consolidate.
Yeah, absolutely, Preeti. In 2012, the Samajwadi Party won about 41 out of the 61 seats. So if the Samajwadi Party is to return to power, again, a crucial phase. I think we say this about every phase. But here, certainly, considering that places like Ayodhya go to the polls, Prayagraj goes to the polls, it's very important that the Samajwadi Party makes a dent in the BJP's tally from 2017. Just to give you a micro picture on some important seats, Ayodhya itself, Pawan Pandey from the Samajwadi Party, who won Ayodhya in 2012 for the very first time since the Babri fell. He's in a direct contest with Ved Prakash Gupta. It's a very interesting contest to watch. Then, of course, in Sirathu, that is Prayagraj, you have Keshav Maurya going up against Pallavi Patel, who is the sister of Union Minister Anupriya Patel, Apna Dal Sonelal faction. Pallavi Patel is contesting on an SP symbol against Keshav Prasad Maurya. It's a massive prestige battle. You saw Dimple Yadav and Jaya Bachchan both campaign personally for Pallavi Patel against Keshav Prasad Maurya. So it's a massive battle. And if the buzz in Lucknow is to be believed, Keshav Prasad Maurya will once again be amongst the contenders for the CM's post in case the BJP looks to go without Yogi. So defeating Keshav Prasad Maurya would be a huge feather in the SP's cap. Also in the contest from Pratapgarh is Anupriya Patel's mother, Krishna Patel. She is contesting on her own symbol, Apna Dal Kamerawadi faction. So another interesting battle there. So a lot of interesting battles today as the election, gets kick-started in Eastern UP, in Purvanchal. A lot of prestige battles. And one final battle I want to mention is Mona Mishra, Aradhana Mishra, who's the deputy president of the UPCC. So she's the last sort of holdout for the Congress in this region, Rampur Caste. So she'll also be going to the polls. So a lot of interesting battles to watch out for today, Preeti.
Interesting battles, and one, a small thing in all of that, and I'll bring in Javed Ansari in it. Javed, while I was also reporting, everyone would say that, there might be 403 seats, but the contest is on 402 seats because the third seat, Raja Bhaiya, has already won. It's something that has happened, time in and time again. He's won 6 elections already. We're going to play his visuals out. He's just gone to vote. For the first time, I would reckon, at least in the last 3 elections, that the Samajwadi Party has actually fielded someone against him.
Yeah, because still just the other day, he was a part of the Samajwadi parties. Raja Bhaiya holds a tremendous amount of sway in his constituency, and it should not come as much of a surprise to people that he will coast along this time as well. In the neighboring constituency of Rampur Caste, that is Mr. Pramod Tiwari's bastion. There is a traditional rivalry between Pramod Tiwari and Raja Bhaiya. Now that Mr. Pramod Tiwari has moved to the center, his daughter Mona Mishra, Aradhana Mishra, popularly known as Mona Mishra, she's holding the fort. She was the CLP leader of the Congress party. Extremely promising, one to look out for the future. In the midst of all this, don't forget, in Allahabad, there's another Congress stalwart, Anugrah Narayan Singh, former president of the Allahabad Students' Union, comes from a left background, crossed over to the Congress. He's been a several-time MLA. Unfortunately, with the rise of the identity politics, he lost out. But he is an extremely serious and senior person there, and one of the voices of sanity, if one would say, in this caste and communal infected politics of Uttar Pradesh.
Before we go across to Mr. Shastri, I want to cut across to Prayagraj, where the Nishad factor could also possibly play out. My colleague Pallavi joining us from Prayagraj. Pallavi, a mammoth 12 constituencies going to vote this morning in Prayagraj.
That's right. There has been brisk voting. In fact, where we're standing right now, Preeti, this is the polling station behind me. A short while ago, earlier, in fact, this morning, BJP minister and candidate for the Bharatiya Janata Party from the Allahabad West constituency, Siddharth Singh, in fact, cast his vote over here. He sounded very confident. In fact, he gave a figure of 305 plus for the Bharatiya Janata Party come March 10. We'll, of course, wait to see how that pans out for the Bharatiya Janata Party, but he was very confident about the 12 seats of Prayagraj as well, about them, of course, being scooped up by the Bharatiya Janata Party. A short while ago, Deputy Chief Minister Keshav Prasad Maurya, who is, of course, contesting from the Sirathu seat from Kaushambi district, in fact, came here because his vote is here at the very same polling station in Prayagraj and cast his vote as well. He sounds very confident about the BJP's prospects going forward as well. This is the Eastern Belt. Now, the Eastern Belt of Uttar Pradesh is voting in the 5th, 6th and the 7th phases. We do know that the Bharatiya Janata Party has very big plans for the upcoming phases of the elections. In fact, we're hearing that the Prime Minister himself will be campaigning in his Lok Sabha constituency of Varanasi earlier in the first half of next month, starting possibly on the 3rd up until the 5th, when campaigning comes to a close. Finally, for these very crucial Uttar Pradesh elections, there are road shows being planned, there are public meetings being planned. So big guns of the Bharatiya Janata Party will be campaigning in the Eastern Belt and camping in the Eastern Belt. They do realize that while it might seem like, you know, this belt favors the Bharatiya Janata Party and they've done previously well over here, the contest is extremely critical over here, as well as we were speaking of earlier when we were speaking of the first two phases in Uttar Pradesh. It's very critical over here as well, because caste politics is again going to take center stage in this belt of the election. Preeti.
Caste politics definitely taking center stage. The Nishad factor could play out in a couple of seats where Prayagraj is concerned. So will the Brahmin factor. Let's listen in now, in fact, to Rita Bahuguna Joshi. My colleague spoke to the Brahmin face of the Bharatiya Janata Party, acquired from the Congress earlier. Listen in.
हमें विश्वास है कि प्रयागराज में बहुत बड़ी संख्या में, मैं समझती हूँ 70% मतदान होने की संभावना है और यहाँ से हम सभी सीटें जीत के निकलेंगे.
All right, you just heard Rita Bahuguna Joshi there, but let's cut across back to our guest. Let's bring in Sandeep Shastri back into this conversation. Mr. Shastri, you know, the importance of the last two phases cannot be lost on anyone. Many political analysts, you know, some like you, some, you know, others predicting that this election could come down to the last two phases. Understandably, the Prime Minister did it in 2017 as well. He's doing this again on the 3rd of March, when 3rd is when the 6th phase goes to poll, and before the 7th phase, which is in Banaras, which is his constituency as an MP, he's going to be camping out in Banaras, you know, in Varanasi. He's done it in 2017 as well, but it clearly shows, you know, how, you know, seriously the BJP top brass is taking the last two phases.
Preeti, the strategy of the BJP is extremely clear. When you had the key leaders of the backward caste moving out of the BJP, you suddenly see the Prime Minister once again becoming the main face of the campaign. In fact, pushing the Chief Minister to the second spot in terms of visibility. And if you recall, Preeti, in the last Bihar elections also, it was the last phases which actually turned the tide. And it was those last phases which saw the Prime Minister and the central leadership of the BJP aggressively campaigning. You seem to be seeing a repeat of that in Uttar Pradesh, where as the election campaign went on, it became clear that this was a very, very tight contest, and this was a very fierce contest. And whenever such contests happen, we have seen in the past, the BJP strategy has always been to project its central leadership, even if it is a state assembly election, and draw as much support as they can from such a campaign. And you are going to see that in the last few phases of this election, because of the closeness of the battle, and because also of the fact that the Prime Minister himself has been elected from this state. And therefore, it's crucial for him, for his image, and for the party to ensure that the BJP comes up with a stellar performance here.
To this conversation as well, Abhishek, The fact is the Samajwadi Party understands, they think that they've done the math, the arithmetic right where East is concerned. Would you reckon they have enough to go ahead into the last two crucial phases?
Well, definitely, Preeti, I think they do. Remember that in Western UP, Prime Minister Narendra Modi was deeply unpopular with sections of the Jat farmers there because of the farm laws. Now, when you come to Eastern UP, you have the sort of the converse happening, where the Prime Minister is not so unpopular, but Yogi Adityanath is quite unpopular because of this image of Thakurwad. Now, Om Prakash Rajbhar will really come into his own in the last two phases. He is a powerful orator, very, very popular mass leader here. People love to listen to him speak. So we'll have to wait and see what will be the effect of OP Rajbhar. Also, the Mauryas come into the picture here. Swami Prasad Maurya, right, contesting from Fazil Nagar. Kushinagar is his bastion. We have RPN Singh, who was defected as well. So interesting battle brewing there. So I think the Samajwadi Party, yes, has got the caste arithmetic right. Interestingly, in this phase, the Samajwadi Party is going on its own, but you have what is known as the Devi Patan division. The Devi Patan division, essentially, right, you have places like Bahraich, you have places like Gonda that come under that division. So these are all SP strongholds which the BJP essentially took away from the SP. Also, you have the elections coming up in Ghazipur, Azamgarh, Banaras itself, where I'm coming to you from, right? All these elections, right, are coming up in the next two phases. I feel the Samajwadi Party has got its caste calculus correct. Just to give you an idea of that, if you look at some of the prestige battles, right? So in Azamgarh, for example, right, you have Akhilesh Yadav, who's a member of parliament there. So it's a stronghold of the SP. What you basically have seen is what the SP basically needs to do in this election is all the strongholds that it lost to the BJP, it needs to recapture this time. So the non-Yadav OBC vote, how angry are they with the Thakurwad Sarkar of Yogi Adityanath? That will be the deciding factor in this phase.
Well, okay, let's just, now focus on this phase. We've spoken about how crucial the next two phases could be for both the BJP and the Samajwadi Party. But Abhishek was talking about the traditional strongholds, or what they were in 2012 for the Samajwadi Party. Gonda, and to give our viewers an example, 7 seats in Gonda swept by the BJP. All of them went to the BJP. Bahraich, if you look at 7 in Bahraich, 6 went to the BJP and 1 to the SP. So clearly the BJP in 2017, there was a rout where this particular belt is concerned. The BJP actually, if you look at any possible phase, did exceedingly well. It has a tall order to match where past precedent is concerned. I want to cut across right now to my colleague in Chitrakoot. Shreya joins us from Chitrakoot. If we go across to various other constituencies spread across in the 5th phase, caste calculations, things, poll issues, local issues. But when you go down, Chitrakoot, Bundelkhand belt, things are very different. Water is a huge issue, like in Banda, there was in the last phase, in Chitrakoot as well. Shreya, good morning. Brisk voting happening in Chitrakoot this morning?
Well, good morning to you too, Preeti. There is a significant number of voters lining up in the polling booths here in Chitrakoot. As you can see the visuals on the screen, people are queuing up in large numbers. The voter turnout that came till 9 a.m. stood at around 8.80 in this particular constituency. Now, 2 seats are from Chitrakoot among the 61 seats that are going into polling today. One is the Chitrakoot region, which is largely the Chitrakoot Dham area. The other is the Manikpur Assembly constituencies that constitute of the Patha region, which is the rocky terrain and one of the areas that actually face a lot of issues so far as water is concerned, as you were mentioning, because Bundelkhand is dry, it's arid, water is an issue, and it still is one of the major reasons, when we were speaking with people. In Manikpur, caste equation also becomes significant because there's a significant amount of voter base from the Adivasi communities who are yet to get the Adivasi status here in Uttar Pradesh. That is something that's also working around, and from that very constituency, it's the Apna Dal who is fighting the election, and that's also the same constituency, from where the infamous dacoit Dadua's son, Veer Pratap Singh, he's also spoke to us early morning today. He's fighting the election from SP. It's a triangular fight because that seat used to be a BSP bastion, but this time it's a triangular fight between Apna Dal, SP and BSP. And when we move to Chitrakoot, it's more of an SP and BJP fight with the rhetoric of development, with the rhetoric of religious work done, because it's the Chitrakoot Dham that the BJP spoke largely about the development work that has happened. But people also have a lot of grievances on the ground. They believe that it's also been neglected, probably because it's from the Bundelkhand region. People believe there's lots more to be done, and that's something we'll have to wait and watch for when the results come on the 10th of March.
only know when that last vote is counted on the 10th of March, but the BJP has, as we speak, and we're just going through, and I'll bring in Javed into this conversation, the rally list of the Prime Minister today, Javed, is rather astounding. He usually does it every phase which goes to poll is when the Prime Minister Narendra Modi is holding a rally for the next phase of elections. He's doing it this time as well in the Maurya and Varanasi and even Basti, if I'm not wrong.
That's the advantage that he enjoys. By virtue of being Prime Minister, he occupies the bully pulpit. So even if he sneezes, that becomes, prime time news for the media. So that's an advantage which nobody can match. That aside, the BJP are very good at communication. We saw it the last time around as well. In the crucial phases, in the last phase, he camped for 2 days in Varanasi and kept carpet bombing the neighboring districts that were going to the polls. He will do it again this time. Just before me, your reporter was talking of caste and other factors. Look, caste is a constant in Uttar Pradesh. Unfortunately, caste and identity politics and community issues are a constant in every constituency, in every phase of elections. It's sometimes personalities or local issues also come into the mix. But I do believe, and I could be wrong, and I hope that I live to see a day when identity and caste issues recede and we start voting on issues. But this is the reality of Uttar Pradesh and of Bihar. Unfortunately, where at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, you either vote according to your caste or, if not so, then according to your religion. This time around, there is a silver lining. Polarization along communal and religious lines has not taken place to the extent that some parties would have wanted. And this is on both sides. And perhaps we are seeing the beginning of a new kind of politics, or maybe for a while it's caste triumphing communalism or religious identities.
All right, let's quickly listen in to my colleague Pallavi speaking to Siddharth Singh.
We have in the last 4 phases, BJP and its allies, we have done extremely well. And therefore, what we are hearing is the Samajwadi Party and the top leaders of the Samajwadi Party are planning to go on a holiday from 11th of March. So I think we have done extremely well. And the 5th phase, 6th and 7th is a clean sweep for BJP.
All right, Siddharth Singh speaking to my colleague Pallavi. He's fit to be tested this time around as well, other than other important leaders where the Uttar Pradesh cabinet is concerned. But the caste factor, unfortunately, plays a huge part when Uttar Pradesh goes to vote, as Javed was also talking about. So let's cut across right now to Sandeep Shastri to dig deeper. Sandeep Shastri, you had earlier mentioned the Nishad factor could actually play a big role in this particular belt. Why do you think so?
Traditionally, also in these constituencies, in this region, the Nishad factor has been important. Remember last time the Apna Dal managed to get 3 seats in alliance with the BJP in this region. This time they are divided. There are 2 factions of that party. So it will be interesting to see which faction is the one which the voters really give their support to. I also would emphasize the larger point I made. While the Nishad factor is critical in this region, we also need to emphasize the fact that the non-Yadav backward caste vote in this region, other than the Nishad voters, also are critical in many constituencies. And in the last Lok Sabha election, it's important to highlight that the BJP swept these votes along with the votes of the upper caste. Now, will they be able to repeat that performance this time, given the divide that you have in the Apna Dal, and given the fact that local issues tend to dominate much more in an assembly election? In an assembly election, local factors seem to play a much more crucial role. The perception of the citizens on the development issue on the ground, I think all these factors would come into play. And that's what makes this election an extremely tight election. Going back to the point which Javedji made a bit earlier, I think in the remaining phases of the elections, the 2 key players, the Samajwadi Party and the BJP, I think their leadership is going to come out with full effort to try and reach out as much as possible. The BJP has always done that in elections across states. And it'll be interesting to see how much the Samajwadi Party and its leadership is able to match up to that that communication expose, that the communication exposure that the BJP and its leadership would be able to bring in the next phases.
Well, the communication exposure is already happening, and and that's where I'll bring in Abhishek into this conversation, because Abhishek, where the Samajwadi Party is concerned in terms of campaigning, it has one face, in which is Akhilesh Yadav. When you look at Uttar Pradesh, the BJP has a battery of star campaigners, with the Pradhan campaigner being the Pradhan Mantri himself. Today, as we speak, the 5th poll goes to vote, and the Prime Minister is going to be holding 3 rallies.
Yeah, Preeti, look, of course, it's, I wouldn't say that the Samajwadi Party is a one-man party, but certainly at the moment it looks like a one-man army. But what I can tell you is that behind the scenes, this has been a deliberate ploy to project Mr. Akhilesh Yadav as the lone sort of man who is standing up to the might of the BJP. The symbolism of that is very powerful. And India Today itself, if I'm not mistaken, has carried Mr. Akhilesh Yadav's picture on the cover, calling him the challenger. So let us not underestimate the power of one man, the underdog, David against Goliath. That has a lot of resonance. I just want to pick up on Mr. Ansari's point on caste, if I may, Preeti. Every alliance, every election, yes, is about caste, right? But these caste alliances are also economic alliances, right? They're also economic alliances. So what has had a lot of play on the campaign trail when Mr. Akhilesh Yadav has spoken about Keshav Prasad Maurya, he's brought up the fact that Yogi Adityanath has made Keshav Prasad Maurya sit on a stool while he himself sits on a chair. Now, you might say this is a very trivial issue, but in the mind of that Maurya voter, he feels that Yogi Adityanath is not respecting his community. First of all, Keshav Prasad Maurya should have been the Chief Minister in 2017. He was robbed of that at the last minute by Yogi Adityanath. So the power of caste, yes, is very much prevalent, but these are economic alliances. What will you do for my caste? What can a leader do for any caste? Jobs, security, right? The same things you can do for any other caste. So it is a caste alliance. It will always be a caste election in Uttar Pradesh, but the underlying issues are always economic. So they're economic alliances. So disrespect meted out to Keshav Prasad Maurya will be a factor. And the Nishads, I just want to say, Preeti, the Nishad community has been asking for scheduled caste status. The main demand they have made, basically through Sanjay Nishad, the ally of the BJP, is that get us scheduled caste status, get us reservation. No reservation, no vote. I think the Nishad community might spring a surprise and vote against the BJP.
Okay.
That's a possibility.
Well, okay, you talked about the Maurya factor in all of this, but Abhishek, if you go on ground, really the fact that does Swami Prasad Maurya have any traction at all is rather debatable, and that has been picked up on ground. So, the factor of Keshav Prasad Maurya being slighted could be way lesser than, having no pull where Swami Prasad Maurya is concerned. People are actually coming out and saying that he has a tough fight getting his own seat this time around. But we'll come back to that. I want to cut across right now to my colleague Maushmi. She's in Amethi. Let's quickly listen in to the latest that my colleague Maushmi, the news, she spoke to Sanjay Singh and Amita Singh from Amethi. Listen in.
His wife is fighting this election, and apparently this battle has turned between a Maharaja versus a Maharaja.
Firstly, I believe in discipline, and party has decided that I should fight with the BJP ticket from Amethi. So I'm here in the field. Today is voting day. And as far as opposition is concerned from SP, I think the completely Amethi public is with me and given full confidence in me, so there is no problem.
Emotional card in Amethi has worked often, and there's an emotional connect of your family. But this time round, Maharaji Prajapati has been playing the emotional card. She's been crying on the stage. Her daughter's been crying on the stage, and apparently trying to seek votes. Do you think that will work for her?
Well, actually, you said the right thing, Mosmi, that the emotional card has been tried a couple of times in Amethi. It did work 1 or 2 times. But this time I believe, and I firmly believe, that the people of Amethi have realized their errors, that they are not here to wipe the tears of candidates, but they want strong candidates who could possibly wipe their tears. I see that very distinctly in people, and I do not see the false tears being appreciated anymore.
Javed, Sanjay Singh, once Gandhi loyalist, now fighting on a BJP ticket. pretty much sets the course of what we've been seeing. In Raebareli, the 2 seats that the Congress won from, both now Rakesh Singh and Aditi Singh, which went to polls the last phase, now fighting with the BJP. The similar situation playing out in Amethi.
Yes, Sanjay Singh, my friend, has done. The wheel has turned a full circle for him. From Congress to Janata Dal, from Janata Dal to Janata Party, from Janata Party to BJP, then back to the Congress, and then back again to the BJP. Last time around, his estranged wife, his first wife, Garima Singh, won that seat. It was a huge embarrassment for him. Sanjay Singh has now gone back and he's contesting. You spoke of the lady from Raebareli. Her father used to be in the Congress, rebelled, joined the Congress again. She was elected. And don't forget, all these people that you've named have this Rajput linkages. They've all gone back, linkages to Mr. Adityanath. They've all rallied around a Rajput leader. While this is an advantage, this is also a disadvantage. Mr. Adityanath has now been reduced. His pull has now been reduced to that of his own community, and this is not. I mean, this is being frowned upon by the other communities. It's boomeranging. It's boomeranging on the BJP, especially on Mr. Adityanath. His pull is now just limited to his own caste, and not just. He's no longer a leader of other communities. He's only now, his power base has shrunk to that of just the Rajputs.
All right, okay. So those visuals there coming in of Sanjay Singh with his wife Amita Singh just cast their ballot, but it's interesting, known as the Raja of Amethi. He was with the Congress, now with the BJP, and the reason that he gave was that there is no direction, no leadership where the Congress party is concerned, that he had lost faith in the leadership of the Gandhis, therefore now fighting from the Bharatiya Janata Party. I want to cut across to Ayodhya. Crucial battle going on in Ayodhya on many seats, 5 seats in Ayodhya. 2017, all of them were swept away by the BJP. What will happen this time around? My colleague Aishwarya is joining me live from there. A very good morning, Aishwarya. When you were walking, especially in the main city where the temple is going to come up, you keep hearing the line, "Jo Ram ko laaye hain, hum unko laayenge." But in various other constituencies in Ayodhya, pitched battles being fought.
Well, yes, Preeti, you are definitely right. When one walks into the streets, we do see that apart from the name of Ram, we do see people saying that whoever has made the Ram temple, the vote will go for them. Ayodhya, in fact, has been very interesting, Preeti. In 2012, all the 5 seats were won by the Samajwadi Party. In 2017, all the 5 seats, as you said, were swept by the Bharatiya Janata Party. Now, who will win this time, we'll get to know on the 10th of March. But the polling, if we talk about for the first 2 hours in the morning, 7 to 9 a.m., has been very good, 10%. In Ayodhya, we still see people queuing up, lining up. One more thing which is interesting is the security deployment in almost all the polls, all the booths here. Very high security because of the history of the place, and we are also seeing how the MLA, the current MLA, had won the 2017 election with 50,000 votes. Will the Bharatiya Janata Party be able to sweep this time is a big question, because we are seeing the Samajwadi Party putting up a very tough fight this time. Preeti.
Aishwarya, okay, we're going to keep coming back to you. My colleague Aishwarya reporting right now from Ayodhya. Sandeep Shastri, Ayodhya becomes very, very interesting at this point of time because, with what our reporters are picking up. Yes, the main, city where the temple is, there is a huge sentiment for the Bharatiya Janata Party. But other than that, the battle going on between the SP and the BJP is neck and neck is what we're hearing.
You are very right, Preeti. I think the maximum advantage that the BJP could get from the Ayodhya factor has already been got, and that has already plateaued. So I think other factors would now come into play. Other factors like the economic development of the region, the way in which the government reaches out to those sections of society which require the support of the government, those factors become crucial. So I think the BJP also realizes that the over-dependence on the Ayodhya card will not necessarily help in these regions, because what can be got through that has already been secured. So I think that's something going to be very interesting to watch in terms of the strategy. And that's why I think in the larger area, the competition between the SP and BSP has become so tough, because there are other issues on the ground which seem to be influencing and impacting the way voters are thinking on issues in this region. And I think that if we were to only focus on the Ayodhya issue, I think we may be missing the larger range of issues which could be impacting on voter choice in this region.
One big reason, and I'll bring in Aishwarya back into this conversation, is Aishwarya, if we still have Aishwarya and we can get her back. Aishwarya, Javed, I know you want to come in. Okay, Javed, go ahead, come in and we'll get Aishwarya back. Go ahead.
Look, it should come as no surprise to people that that there is a battle on in the Ayodhya Faizabad region between the BJP and the SP. That the BJP is not it's not a cakewalk. The SP has traditionally done well in those areas. They won the Ayodhya seat. The parliamentary seat of Faizabad was won by Mitra Sen Yadav. He was with the CPI, then joined Samajwadi Party, went on to become a minister as well. There's Abhay Singh, who from the neighboring seat who won, Pawan Pandey, is not a pushover. So while the Ayodhya proper seat may go with the BJP, the SP has a lot of support in the areas in and around Ayodhya, and in the other seats. Don't be too surprised if the SP pushes the BJP really hard, and they could surprise them in a couple of seats as well.
Well, the indications that are coming in from Ayodhya was that, yes, while there is a strong sentiment, even on most of those 5 seats where the BJP is concerned, the choice of candidates for the BJP is something which hasn't gone down very well. There's a lot of anti-incumbency against some of them. But Abhishek, I'll bring you into this conversation, because if you do look at it in terms of traditionally, electoral history stands that even during the peak of the Ram Mandir wave at one point of time in the 90s, Ayodhya bucked that trend and stayed with the Samajwadi Party then as well.
Absolutely, Preeti. If a few days ago, Mr. Akhilesh Yadav held a massive roadshow in Ayodhya, and he campaigned in the temple town itself. Right? He's always campaigned in Ayodhya district, but this time he campaigned in the temple town. There were seers all around him, right? He's been accused of soft Hindutva, but I don't think this is soft Hindutva. I think what the BJP has essentially done is you now have to carry a camera with you whenever you visit a temple to show that you're a Hindu. To that extent, that has been their triumph of their politics. But he's burnishing his Hindu credentials as well. And like I said, Pawan Pandey is a powerful candidate. Also, Preeti, I just want to point out, in the Zilla Panchayat polls last year, in all these Hindu centers like Ayodhya, Mathura, even Banaras, right? The Samajwadi Party swept the Zilla Panchayat polls. I'm not talking about the block Pramukh elections, but the Zilla Panchayat polls. The Samajwadi Party came in first even in Ayodhya. Ayodhya this time, the issues are hyper-local. For a long time, the BJP could get away with building this larger national Ram Mandir narrative. But Mr. Yadav, right from the podium in Ayodhya, from his Vijay Rath bus, he was speaking of issues like water. He was speaking of issues about house tax. He spoke about his 300 units of free electricity promise, right? Ayodhya, the municipal corporation, the Nagar Nigam in Ayodhya is riddled with issues of corruption. Another major issue, Preeti, in Ayodhya this time is the land scam that people are not talking about. Massive land scam in Ayodhya, where people close to the BJP mayor there and the BJP candidates have bought up all the land around the Ram Mandir, waiting for the tourist boom that is to come once the Mandir is constructed. So this land scam has also impacted the BJP. Ayodhya is not going to be smooth sailing for the BJP. Okay. The SP could just reclaim its bastion.
Well, we don't know that. We'll only know when the last vote is counted. One thing is clear, there is a sentiment, especially where the Mandir is concerned. How deep does that sentiment run? Or will, past electoral history cut in where the Samajwadi Party is concerned? I want to cut across right now to my colleague in Sultanpur. Supriya Bardwaj joins us from there. A very good morning, Supriya. The curious case of that one constituency of Jaisinghpur in Sultanpur is always, questioned, because common folklore says that those who win Jaisinghpur actually form the government in Uttar Pradesh.
Well, absolutely, yes. We know this folklore, and here in Sultanpur also, Preeti, we have been seeing that since morning. There are a lot of people coming in. Just have a look as to what the scene at ground zero is. A lot of voter turnout is here. Many voters in the morning when we saw were very keen to come all the way from Lucknow also and cast their vote. You can see the selfie points where people are coming out and clicking their pictures. This is the mood at grassroots at the ground zero here. We have been seeing a lot of voices, a lot of people coming here. आपने भी आके वोट डाल के सेल्फी खींची है, तो इस बार का एक्सपीरियंस कैसा रहा? क्योंकि कोविड प्रोटोकॉल भी है, क्या इस बारी
सब सुरक्षित है? राष्ट्रवाद, हिंदुत्व।
अच्छा, एक चीज मुझे बताइए, आपने जो है अभी सेल्फी खींच रहे हैं यहाँ पर, तो सेल्फी खींच के आए हैं, और लोगों को भी आप कहना चाहेंगे कि आए और वोट करें?
हाँ, बिल्कुल कहना चाहेंगे, बिल्कुल कहना चाहेंगे।
Well, since morning people are coming here. You can see that this very joint, this very area, which is the voter selfie point, is really very buzzing with the activity. If we look at Sultanpur, the voters over here comprise of around 17.1% Muslims, and then 22.41% SC votes are here. So this is there are 5 assembly seats, Preeti, out of which 4 has been won by BJP and 1 by Samajwadi Party, and this time also we are seeing a lot of people people coming out and voting here. But at the same time also, Sultanpur recently made news because of that bulldozer jib which was taken by both the leader of Samajwadi Party, Akhilesh Yadav, and then in that rally which took place here of Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, we saw those bulldozers standing there written Baba ke bulldozer. So this is the seat which is really very hotbed of the politics at the moment, and the mood and privatization is also a big issue. Women voters are saying safety and security is of great concern, but at the same time they're also asking for that pariksha. That is also one very major issue with the young voters. They're saying that how the exams are getting cancelled, and they are finding it very difficult to get jobs. So these are the issues which are resonating at ground zero. But I would like to show you once again the entire mood over here. A lot of people coming in and voting over here. Voting started since morning. There is this COVID protocol which is being followed. There are masks, there are hand sanitizers, and people have been asked to wear gloves when they go in and cast their vote. So this is what is happening at Sultanpur, and certainly yes, that forelock that he who wins Sultanpur wins Uttar Pradesh.
Well, we're going to come back to you, Supriya. Appreciate you for joining us this morning. Let's cut across right now to Barabanki. This is where, the Congress actually has a good shot on a seat, and they, I was there in Barabanki, and it said that it's not really because of the Congress, but because of one individual, PL Punia. PL Punia's son is contesting from one of the constituencies in Barabanki, speaking with my colleague right now. Listen in.
आपको लगता है कि अमेठी का किला जो है बचाने के लिए राहुल गांधी भी उतर आए हैं, प्रियंका गांधी भी आ गई हैं, वहाँ पर भी सीटें जीतना बहुत टफ है, तो ऐसे में बाराबंकी हो, प्रतापगढ़ हो, अमेठी हो, कैसे कांग्रेस अपने सीटों को बचा पाएगी?
देखिए, कांग्रेस पार्टी अपनी सभी सीटों को बचाएगी और अमेठी से भी बहुत अच्छा करेंगे, और सभी सीटों पर कांग्रेस पार्टी की मजबूती के साथ में वहाँ पर चुनाव लड़ा है और जीतेंगी, हर हालत में जीतेंगी, कोई शक शुबे की कोई बात नहीं है।
आतंकवाद का मुद्दा भी इस बार हावी रहा और कहा जाने लगा कि समाजवादी पार्टी के ऊपर आरोप भी लगाया है कि वो कहीं ना कहीं सपोर्ट करते हैं। ऐसे में आपका क्या मानना है इस मुद्दे जो हैं?
देखिए, मुद्दे आतंकवाद का मुद्दा एक कोर्ट जजमेंट आया, उस सिलसिले में ज़रूर मेंशन हुआ, लेकिन जो मुख्यतः बेरोजगारी है, महंगाई है, लैंड ऑर्डर है, किसान जो छुट्टे जानवर का मुद्दा है, ये मुद्दे विशेष रूप से हावी रहे, बाकी नहीं।
All right, PL Punia's son is in the fray where Barabanki is concerned. Javed, one thing that you do here in Barabanki is that this particular seat could very well go to PL Punia's son, not because of the Congress party, but primarily because of Mr. Punia.
Well, certainly Mr. Punia has invested a lot of time, energy there. He's held some very important positions in the government of UP, and he used that. He's nurtured this constituency, and it's now those investments are now bearing fruit. Whether it is only because of him and nothing because of the Congress party is up for debate. But nonetheless, yes, this is one of the seats the Congress would be hoping that they will win.
Well, this is also one of the seats, Abhishek, that if the Congress is in the fray, the Samajwadi Party candidate is also strong. The word on ground is that the vote will get divided and the BJP will sail through.
Well, Preeti, again, I feel that we have to trust the wisdom of the voter. This time, I mean, Barabanki is again known for its tehzeeb. There's something called the Deva Sharif there that people of all faiths visit. I know Thakurs who visit the shrine. So Barabanki again has a lot of symbolism for the sort of lost Ganga Jamuni tehzeeb of Uttar Pradesh, you could say, after the rise of the Saffron Party in 2017. Will the vote get split? I think essentially it boils down again to how badly do the voters of Barabanki want to defeat the BJP. Where there is that overwhelming urge and need to defeat the BJP, the vote will not get split. Especially the Muslim community, we know, is strategically voting. Even the Jatavs, for example, are moving away from Mayawati in certain seats where they feel that the BSP candidate has no prospects. So the voters this time are voting very strategically, Preeti. And as your reporter, I think Mosmi said, issues like privatization are getting a lot of play on the ground. Mr. Akhilesh Yadav is talking about Air India on the campaign trail because he's using that as an example of privatization, putting an end to reservation. The UP TET exam, the teacher eligibility test, Shiksha Mitra, the lack of jobs in government, in the government, right? 11 lakh vacancies in the government have to be filled. The last 2 or 3 years, there have been no recruitments to the army as well. So this Nara of Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan, the farmers as well are, we know their strife, right? MSP for every crop is what Akhilesh Yadav is promising. So yes, beyond the caste and the religion, yes, you have these issues that are playing out. And I would pick up on what Mr. Ansari said. We are seeing a new kind of politics emerge in Uttar Pradesh.
Okay.
And I think this election will be a paradigm election, a shape-shifting election.
Well, you talk about Deva Sharif. Yes, it's that one institution where Diwali, Holi is celebrated inside the premises. So yes, that whole Ganga Jamuni tehzeeb that we talk about, it's a prime example of that. But I want to bring in Sandeep Shastri back into this conversation. Sandeep Shastri, would you reckon that the voter this time knows their mind in terms of strategic voting consolidation with what Abhishek is saying?
I would endorse what Abhishek ji and Javed ji said. I think the voter in India and the voter in UP is quite clear of what she wants, and when he goes out to vote, they are quite crystal clear on the issues they are voting. I think the point of concern for analysts like me is what we assume to be the issues they portray before us. Are those the real issues which are in their mind when they go to press the button of the electronic voting machine? I think time and again, Preeti ji, we have seen in our surveys that unemployment, price rise, poverty are at the back of the mind of people, and they see that as the most important issues that plague them. But when it goes to voting, when it goes to that moment of entering the voting booth and standing in front of the EVM, the question is, are there other set of factors which also come in when defining and deciding who to vote for? So I think the issues are extremely complex. The narratives are truly multiple. And if you look at the approach which both the BJP and Samajwadi Party have adopted, I think they are trying to respond, at least on the ground, in terms of the issues that they are raising to these multiple narratives. You find leaders of both the parties raising different issues at different spaces. Right. And I think it's now what would be the voters' perception on whom to believe and whom to invest your faith in.
Well, what's really interesting is, and I think that needs to be said, that this really, when you're on ground, even when you're reporting and chronicling this election, it doesn't seem to be a wave election. Kisi ki hawa nahi hai is bar, and it's come down to a seat-by-seat fight. And that is what makes this, election that much more interesting, because every constituency is important. It could go either way. And that's the beauty of this particular election. Let's listen in to all our political reactions that are coming in, and we are back with our panelists.
में सपा की प्रत्याशी हैं महाराजी प्रजापति, गायत्री प्रजापति की पत्नी हैं और उनके साथ उनकी दोनों बेटियां भी हैं। महाराजी जी, ये बताइए कि लगातार आप मंच पे भी जा रही हैं, एक भावनात्मक अपील कर रही हैं, क्या जनता जो है आपकी बात सुनेगी, क्योंकि बलात्कार के आरोप में आजीवन कारावास हुआ है उनको?
पहली बात तो गलत आटे बलात्कार मेरे
पति ऐसा नहीं है। जनता के बीच में हम जा रहे हैं, जनता सब जान रहे हैं कि झूठा आरोप है, झूठा फंसाए हैं। जनता पूरा हमको समर्थन दे रही है। अब और जनता के बीच में हम जा रहे हैं, जनता हमारे साथ है। हम जीतेंगे।
अमेठी में अक्सर कहा जाता है कि इमोशनल कार्ड चलता है। आप लगातार जो है मंचों पे जा रही हैं, तो एक भावनात्मक अपील कर रही हैं। कई बार आप रो पड़ती हैं।
जिसका पति 5 साल से न हो, हमको रोना आता है। हमारी जगह और कोई औरत होती तो वो रोती कि ना रोती? पहले बताओ, बिना अंदर से कुछ दुख रहे, केहू के आंसू आए? तो हमारे पति नहीं है तो हमको तो रोना आएगा। हमारे 2-2, 3-3 बेटे के हमारे शादी अब करेगा है, कारावास सुना दिए तो हमको रोना नहीं आएगा।
पर बलात्कार के आरोप में उनको उठा है।
गलत है। महिला बोलती रही, महिला की बेटी बोलती रही, क्या कहते बयान हो चुका है। उसने, महिला ने भी बोला, मेरे पापा ने भी बोला हमारा नार्को टेस्ट करा लिया जाए। ये टेस्ट ना होते हुए मेरे पिता को आजीवन कारावास कर दिया गया। जब सब कुछ बता दिया है महिला ने। पहले वो बोलती थी इसकी बेटी को दबाव में रखा गया था, किडनैप करके रखा गया था, वो मिली भी नहीं है। अब वो सच बता रही है तो उसको बोल रहे हैं कि उसने पैसा ले लिया, ये लिया, वो लिया, दबाव में बोल रही है। पर ऐसा नहीं, वो खुला बोल रही है।
कोंडा में सिर्फ चुनौती है अपने मार्जिन को तोड़ना, और वो तोड़ेंगे।
सर बस इतना बता दीजिए कि अब जो आपकी चाबी आपने कहा था इलेक्शन के आसपास बताएंगे, क्या अलायंस करेंगे अब इसके आसपास? क्या
इलेक्शन के आसपास?
अलायंस आपका नहीं था, उसमें अलायंस करेंगे सर? अब
पोल तो हो जाने दीजिए पहले। अब तो अभी शादी नहीं हुई हो आप।
हमने इस मुद्दे पे वोट दिया जो सबका साथ, सबका विकास, सबके विश्वास के साथ काम करता है, जो सनातन धर्म, संस्कृति, हिंदू और हिंदुत्व के लिए काम करता है, जो जाति पात पंथ मजहब में भेद नहीं देखता है। इसके नाते इस बार बुलडोजर बाबा की सरकार। लेकिन
All right, in midst of, as we continue to report the Phase-5 polling in Uttar Pradesh, I want to cut across to my colleague Supriya Bharadwaj, who is joining us right now from Sultanpur, but is breaking news of an important meeting that is going on in Delhi. Supriya, over to you.
Well, Preeti, as far as Jaisinghpur is concerned, where we are, the erstwhile, Jaisinghpur and now the Sultanpur Sadar, we were keeping a track of it. Nearby is Amethi, and just a couple of hours back, we had got the information that Bhupesh Baghel will be campaigning in Gorakhpur and the other areas of Uttar Pradesh. But now, there's a crucial meeting of Bhupesh Baghel and Rahul Gandhi taking place. What we have heard from the sources that a review meeting is going on as to what is the Congress party's performance in Uttar Pradesh so far. If you remember that Bhupesh Baghel is the senior AICC observer appointed along with Priyanka Gandhi for the state of Uttar Pradesh by the Congress President Sonia Gandhi. So Priyanka Gandhi is the in charge of AICC of UP, whereas Bhupesh Baghel is a senior observer. And now at the moment a very crucial meeting is going on. Also Congress party's internal election, which is a process which is going on. The sources are telling us that the date for the Congress's poll has been decided. It is around 20th of September. This is what we are breaking right now. The sources are informing us that the elections for Congress's next president will most likely take place on 20th September. So this is the big breaking coming in. Bhupesh Baghel meeting Rahul Gandhi. The discussion is going on as far as the Uttar Pradesh is concerned. The review card is taking place, and also as to what will be the organizational or the Sangathanal Chunav of Congress party. This is going to take place in this very year. The date now has been finalized on 20th of September, which is what the Congress party sources are informing us. As far as Sultanpur is concerned, we know that this decades after decades is the same story, that he who wins Sultanpur Sadar is the one who forms the government in Lucknow. So here at the ground level, I would like to show you that this is the situation over here. A lot of paramilitary presence, a lot of voters present at the moment, and amid all this thing, Amethi as well as Raebareli, the nearby areas, goes to poll. Raebareli is a kaate ki takkar as well as a battle of prestige because of Aditi Singh, and as far as Amethi is concerned, there also Congress is keeping a close watch with them because they would like to win few seats in the Gandhi bastion. As far as Sultanpur Sadar is concerned, BJP has won 4 seats, and 1 seat is with Samajwadi Party, and that's why both Samajwadi Party as well as BJP have put in entire might to ensure that they BJP of course retain their seats, and Samajwadi Party wants to make inroads here. But as far as Delhi is concerned, from UP we see a crucial meeting at the moment is going on at Rahul Gandhi's residence where Chhattisgarh Chief Minister Bhupesh Baghel has reached, and the sources are informing us that apart from the discussion on the Uttar Pradesh elections, the discussion is also taking place about the election process of the Congress party and who will be the next president of the Congress party. That is also the discussion is going on. The sources are informing us that 20th of September, most likely Congress will pick its next president. Congress party will see an internal organizational election taking place in the month of September.
You know, Supriya, coming right back to you, I want to bring in Javed Ansari into this conversation. Javed, 20th September is when Congress will decide on its next president. One can't, stress on that date enough, because December is when Gujarat goes to poll. So it does seem that this is a strategic move. In all probability, Rahul Gandhi to be voted as the next president is, what one would think. And right before Gujarat election. So the onus of Gujarat election falls on Rahul Gandhi and not on any of these.
Look, even when Rahul was not president, the onus always willy-nilly fell on him. As far as the media is concerned, even when he was not president, when he was not calling the shots, the responsibility lay at his door. Yes, it's high time the Congress held an organizational election, and they need to make it transparent. They need to make it free and fair and let the world see, open it to whichever Congress person wants to contest, and let them have an election. So let this issue be put to rest, put to bed once and for all. There are parties which never hold elections, which have never held elections, which have only had nominated presidents decided sometimes by people who are not officially members of that party, but that's a different story. For the Congress party, they need to hold this election. It ought to have been held 3 years earlier, but nonetheless, they should hold these elections and hold them in a transparent manner. And whoever wants to contest, let the best man or woman come.
Javed, in all of this, the importance of Gujarat going to polls cannot be missed. And I want to bring in Supriya back into this.
Preeti, I don't know if these two are connected. The question of Gujarat going to polls and ICC elections, to my mind, they are not correct.
All right, Supriya, Javed says, in his mind, the fact that Gujarat goes to polls and 2 months before Rahul Gandhi takes charge, not connected, but Rahul Gandhi has also been in Gujarat in the last few days. You can see he's trying to build up to that momentum.
Well, as far as who will be the Congress party's next president is still a big mystery, because at the moment a lot of people, a lot of leaders we have spoken to have said that they want that Rahul Gandhi should lead the charge. The last we heard that Mr. Gandhi in the last CWC had said that he will consider. We have heard how the senior chief ministers as well as party leaders had said that he should take the charge of the Congress party. But as far as Gujarat is concerned, yesterday Rahul Gandhi was in Dwarka. Congress party has launched its campaign, the poll preparations in the state of Gujarat. Yesterday itself, there's a 3-day Chintan Shivir going on, and there in a very fiery speech to his own organization, Rahul Gandhi had categorically stated that in the party we are going to now bring in a lot of people who are only of the blood as well as the DNA of the Congress. As far as the others who are there, who are not doing anything, are sitting in the air conditioner, a take on G23, he said that we would like to show them a way out. At the same time also, Rahul Gandhi categorically stated that as far as Gujarat is concerned, he is there present for the organization. Somewhere it is a sequence which we can see that as to how now when the polls are over in Uttarakhand as well as that of Punjab, Rahul Gandhi is on the next mission, which is Gujarat, and certainly yes, Congress is going to take it to the bastion of Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister, as well as Mr. Amit Shah, who is the Home Minister, because they know very well that the road to 2024 also not just go from Uttar Pradesh but even from Gujarat also. So this is what is going to be really interesting to see as to how the Congress party has a poll strategy preparation as far as Gujarat election is concerned, but big development taking place in Delhi at the moment.
Well, that's huge, and we are just digressing for a brief while from Phase-5 polling where Uttar Pradesh is concerned. And Sandeep Shastri, I'll bring you back in. Yes, Javed, I'll come right back to you. But Sandeep Shastri, what's interesting is 2017, Rahul Gandhi was extremely active during the Gujarat polls. He's come under heavy criticism ever since, but credit was given to him for the, on how the Congress performed in 2017. It was that moment where many said he was coming into his own. Of course, after that, there's been a series of criticism.
You are right, Preeti. I think it's time that the Congress removed this veil of uncertainty about leadership within the party. while everybody concedes, especially within the Congress, that Rahul is the one leading the party, but I think he needs to, the party needs to decide who is taking formal charge, and whoever is formally in charge needs to lead from the front. And I think it may be incidental that the election happens in September, which is before the Gujarat polls. But I think it's high time that the Congress makes its presence felt in the states, because you see the number of states that the party has been coming to power in has been shrinking. And the opportunity to be able to make a bid for power in the states which are going to the polls after this round is, I think, very crucial for the Congress in preparation for the 2024 Lok Sabha elections. And I think not only the appointment of a president, election of a president is crucial. I think the line of leadership at the state level of the Congress party must also be something they give attention to, because unless that line of leadership is also developed, to be able to play a critical role in the states would then be very difficult to do. So I think there is clearly a need for the Congress to shrug off this uncertainty, or to shrug off this drift that they have been in, and take on its role as a critical party in the political process. And if they want to be taken seriously, I think these steps would need to be taken by the party.
All right, Javed, you wanted to come in quickly, make a point?
Yes, two things. One, this is the best decision. If this indeed is true, then this is the best decision that the Congress party could have taken. They need to have these polls, have them in a transparent manner. It will put to rest and settle many equations, both within the Congress party and outside. Whoever is elected Congress president, he or she must be fully authorized and empowered. It will lead to clarity at the top. This confusion and multiple power centers should be done away with. And whoever is elected president will then, his vision, his blueprint for the party, his roadmap for the party should be implemented, and they should go with that forward. For better or for worse, once you elect a person, empower that person and just go ahead. This business of being in it and not being in it, this kind of thing is going nowhere. At the moment, the Congress is running around like headless chickens. They need a leader. They need to be clear who that leader is and just go with it.
All right, okay. I want to go back to Supriya right now. Let's focus, put the focus back onto the elections in Uttar Pradesh. And Supriya, we are talking about Phase 5 polling in UP, but now that we are talking about the Congress and the Gandhis, the fact is a lot of questions were asked on why Priyanka Gandhi Vadra was not contesting the polls this time around, because you had Yogi Adityanath who jumped into the poll fray, you had Akhilesh who's fighting this election. If Priyanka Gandhi was serious, many would suggest she should have taken the poll plunge. What were the reasons that she didn't?
Preeti, when we asked this question to her, she had said that everything has a right time. And at the moment, her priority was to ensure that the Sangathan, the organization, is seen at grassroots level. And this is what the Congress party has worked in last 2.5 years, ever since she has taken over the charge of Uttar Pradesh as the AICC General Secretary. Now, what is really interesting is that there are murmurs that she is actually going to take the plunge. But when and in which election, that is to be seen. But as far as the Congress party at the ground level is concerned, people are talking, and we have been also seeing that there is a Sangathan which was completely missing from last 3 decades is now being seen. There are these green, shootouts, which route shootouts. We can see that there are some movement at the ground level where we can see that Congress party's booth members, the committees at the Zilla level are also present. Now, as far as Congress party is concerned, when we spoke to a lot of other Congress senior leaders, they said that they were expecting that she would take a plunge in the last 2019 election, but that didn't happen. There was a huge murmur as to where she will be contesting against Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Varanasi. And then later on, this time, it was categorically stated that right now she is more keen to ensure that the candidates come out. She's more involved in the organization, but there will be a time when she will be contesting. So this is what the Congress party is maintaining at the moment. But this very seat where we are, we were just discussing it when we started this discussion, Preeti, the constituency constituency 189. I would like to show you the mood at ground level, what we can see here at the moment. This very constituency, the constituency number 189, which was earlier called as Jai Singhpur, is Sultanpur Sadar, and it is a record that whoever has to win the seat of Lucknow has to win this very seat. It was in 2017 when this Sultanpur Sadar was won by BJP, and it is a folklore that whosoever wins Sultanpur Sadar wins forms the government in Lucknow. And this is very interesting that when we spoke to a lot of people, they took pride also. They said we are the kingmakers. So right now at ground level, you can see a large number of queue. People have been coming in since morning. There's been heavy voting taking place. The COVID protocols are also being followed. There are gloves, there are masks, as well as that of the sanitizer being asked by the people. Also interestingly, a lot of people have talked about not just the employment crisis and that of the inflation. Some even went on talking about the Rashtravad Mudda, but even privatization. We have met a few voters who were talking that why privatization is taking place, why there are not government jobs. So this is also one issue which is resonating, at least in Sultanpur, when we spoke to a lot of young people and people who are coming from the middle class. They said that inflation is really high, and they are also concerned about the war which is going on in Ukraine. They're saying it is possible that what is happening in Ukraine between Russia and Ukraine will impact their household budgets also. There is a worry about in the minds of people as to how the oil prices and how the inflation will go up after the crisis which is going on in between the Ukraine and Russia.
Supriya, let's try and get in some voter reactions. Abhishek, my colleague, also joining us from Sultanpur. Over to you, Abhishek. Let's try and get in as many voter reactions this time around.
Well, absolutely, Preeti. The battle is very intense in Sultanpur, and as Supriya was saying that, it is going to be very important for this elections as well, because particularly Sultanpur has always been a Gandhi bastion or a Congress stronghold, which was dented by the BJP in last elections. And currently the picture is look like that the 4 MLAs for the Bharatiya Janata Party and 1 for the Samajwadi Party. But this time the fight is going to be very important with the fact how all these issues have been emerging, be it the inflation, be it the unemployment, and of course women's security and stray cattle. That is also a very prominent issue which is coming this time. Let me just speak to some of the people who are here. आपका क्या नाम है?
सर अभी बोले थे।
नहीं, आपका क्या नाम है?
संध्या सिंह।
आपने वोट किया है अभी?
जी।
क्या सोच के किया, क्या मुद्दा आपको लग रहा है?
सर हम वोट नहीं दे पाए।
नहीं दे पाए? जी। अच्छा, प्रीति, there are voters, but not much of the impact, because we have been witnessing from the morning that the people are coming, but not a big rush. Although Sultanpur till 9 AM the voting has been around 8.58%. That has come up, but gradually it is increasing. But as I was telling you earlier also, the issues are basically on inflation, on the stray cattle issue that is also very prevalent here. And at the same time, since it has benefited, this belt specifically, Sultanpur has benefited the Bharatiya Janata Party, and this time they've also changed the MLA, particularly from this day Sultanpur. Vinod Singh is contesting, who has been a minister in the BSP cabinet back then. So that is something the BJP has also tried to manage on the ground. But Samajwadi Party is also giving a tough fight with fielding Anup Sanda, who is a 2-time MLA from Sultanpur. So it's a very important fight, very interesting one. But as far as the voting trend is concerned, it's not very aggressive, but consistently voters are coming and they are casting their vote. Yes.
All right, let's cut across right now. Our guest Sanjay Singh also joining us live right now on our rolling coverage online on the 5th phase of polling. But, Sanjay, the basic sense that we are picking up now phase by phase as we continue to go into the slog overs, if one might say, of this election in the last 2 crucial, phase 6 and 7, is that there seems to be no wave. There seems to be no hawa. It's come down to a constituency on constituency fight where we go seat by seat, and that's what makes this election that much more interesting.
I think I have slight difference of opinion. Of course, elections are about seat by seat. That goes without saying. But yes, there is no hawa as such. But then, of course, at times we don't really see the wind as to which way it is blowing, or the wind is slightly calmer and cooler than it was on 2017. But broadly speaking, people are the two sides, Samajwadi Party and the BJP. There is an opinion on the ground of the people as to which way they are going to cast their vote. And those are basically on the issues, the larger issues, of course, as we know, call it the local also becomes national. The emotional part, of course, when it comes to election is not about just the issues, but also about the emotional part. Emotional part, I think Yogi Adityanath in these phases is weighing high over Akhilesh Yadav. He's also weighing high over Akhilesh Yadav on developmental issues. First two phases, I think, was more challenging for the BJP. These phases, of course, today, fifth phase, going to the polls. Of course, these are the areas where, as it is, sounds very high profile, Amethi, Rahul Gandhi, Allahabad, of course, then Ayodhya, the main hub of Hindutva, that is also there. Amethi particularly more interesting because Priyanka Gandhi's outburst in Amethi as to blaming the voters for how they voted. That part was also very interesting, and Rahul Gandhi practically not seen in 5 phases going to the polls in UP. That again is very, very interesting. I think over the issues, the law and order and the ration for poor, I think that the two planks are going to be most beneficial for Yogi Adityanath. The elections, I don't think election is going to go one way. To my understanding, there is clear advantage to Yogi Adityanath and BJP. Yogi Adityanath has emerged a mass leader, a very strong mass leader in the last 5 years. The party, of course, is there to support him. Prime Minister Modi is there, and the vast infrastructure of BJP, as they call war machine, of course, is there. But Yogi Adityanath on his own is being counted very much in these elections. Remember, in last elections, there was no Yogi Adityanath. Akhilesh Yadav, on the other hand, whosoever generally has to vote against the BJP, whichever caste, whichever community, two communities in particular, Adho and Muslim, rest, whosoever has to vote against the BJP is generally going to the Samajwadi Party, Akhilesh Yadav vote. Congress practically nil. I don't see Congress getting I'll not be surprised if Congress ultimate results comes to a not, or somebody wins as not as Congress candidate but on his own. BSP not seen on the ground also in these areas. Maybe they'll win some because they have some support base on the ground still intact despite not campaigning. Amethi, Ayodhya, we can go on talking about Ayodhya long. I don't know, maybe when you ask next on Ayodhya, maybe I'll speak on that.
Right, okay, we're going to come back to that, but Javed wanted to come in. You know, Javed, the fact is, in 2017 as well, when we saw this entire rout by the BJP and this massive swell, you know, where Uttar Pradesh came in support, nobody really called out a wave at that time as well.
No, it's not true to say that nobody called out a wave. It's a fallacy to believe that only two castes are, that the SP enjoys the support of just two castes. This is what the BJP and their supporters would like the world to believe. The ground realities have changed tremendously from the last round of assembly elections. Two, Mr. Yogi Adityanath's claim on law and order is there's only half truths. He's acted only against one community. No leader, and I say this again, I will underline this, no leader, nobody from the Rajput community, no mafia don, no criminal has been put behind bars. All his actions has either been against been Brahmins or minorities. So therefore, it's been one-sided. If Mr. Yogi Adityanath was that big a leader, Mr. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Amit Shah won't have to do all the heavy lifting for him. This campaign is being run and fought by these two leaders. Mr. Adityanath has been relegated to the background. He's busy fighting and saving his bastion of Gorakhpur. He's not to be seen anywhere. So therefore, it depends on how you look at the bird. The fact is that the BJP this time has a fight on its hands, polarization largely absent on communal lines. This is being fought seat by seat on caste combinations, on personalities, various other factors. And this election, like a lot of people believe, I am also now coming around to the view that this election will be decided in the next 2 rounds that go to the polls.
Well, that seems to be the general perception. I want to cut across to Sandeep Shastri, but before that, let's get in a slew of political reactions that have been coming in.
आपके सामने जो सपा के पूर्व विधायक हैं, अगर उनकी बात करें तो उनका दावा है कि इस बार आप हार रहे हैं।
पिछली बार भी ऐसे ही चर्चा थी, सरकार थी, वो मंत्री थे, फिर भी यहाँ की महान जनता ने, यहाँ के पूज्य संत महंतों ने आशीर्वाद देकर 51,000 मतों से अयोध्या विधानसभा में भारतीय जनता पार्टी को जिताने का काम किया था। और अब तो 5 वर्षों में अयोध्या की दशा और दिशा दोनों बदली है। अयोध्या में सब तरफ काम चल रहे हैं विकास के। प्रभु राम का दिव्य भव्य राम मंदिर जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट के फैसले आने के बाद शुरू हुआ है, वो भी काम चल रहा है। अब जनता को और क्या चाहिए? जनता तो महसूस कर रही है, कुछ चंद लोग जो दिग्भ्रमित करने का काम कर रहे हैं, उनके बारे में जनता जान चुकी है। आपकी जब सरकार थी तो आपने अयोध्या के लिए क्या किया था? आप अयोध्या के लिए बहुत परेशान हैं इस समय, लेकिन आपको तो अवसर दिया गया था 5 साल का, और आप मंत्री भी थे। मुझे तो मंत्री बनने का अवसर नहीं मिला, लेकिन आप तो मंत्री भी थे। आपने कौन सा काम अयोध्या में किया है? एक काम गिना दें, एक काम बता दें। आप हमारी नेगेटिविटी की बात करते हैं, अपनी पॉजिटिविटी की बात बताएं। आप खाली जातिवाद पे वोट लेना चाहते हैं, धर्मवाद पे वोट लेना चाहते हैं, किसी एक वर्ग को अपने साथ जोड़कर आप समझते हैं कि बाकी सब आपको वोट दे देंगे। तो इतने बेवकूफ हमारा समाज नहीं है।
मुद्दे की बात पे हम बात करते हैं, हम कहते हैं ना, आप आइए ना मैदान में, देखते हैं ना मैदान में, आप आइए, जमीन पर पहले आप उतरिए। आसमान पे उतर कर, आसमान पर जाने का और ऊपर बोलने पर जमीन पर नहीं उतर जाता है, नीचे उतरकर काम करने पड़ता है, गांव में जाना पड़ता है, लोगों के बीच में विषय निकालने पड़ते हैं, उनके लिए खड़ा होना पड़ता है, उनके आंसू पोंछने पड़ते हैं, उनके मन के विषय को आगे लाना पड़ता है, तब पूर्ण बहुमत की सरकार बनती है।
All right, so lots of reactions coming in. Earlier on, you heard my colleague Kumar Abhishek talking to the sitting MLA. He's been fielded again by the BJP in Ayodhya Sadar. Cutting across right now to Sandeep Shastri. Sandeep Shastri, in between what Sanjay Singh said and Javed Ansari said, how do you feel this election is different from what went down in 2017?
Now, one huge difference between 2017 and now is that BJP and SP have reversed roles. While the BJP is now no longer the challenger, it has become the defendant. On the other hand, the SP, which was facing an anti-incumbency last time, this time has become the challenger. And this reversal of roles has important significance in terms of the cut and thrust of the campaign. And it also has significance in terms of how the voter perceives these two parties. The BJP will have and has gone to this election trying to project its track record in governance. And I think the verdict will be a reflection of how do the voters perceive this projection by the ruling party. On the other hand, the Samajwadi Party has attacked the government very strongly. And here again, I think the public perception of what the SP has put on the table in this election is what people will evaluate. So in a sense, 2017 is different in important ways because the players are in different positions this time around. And the issues on which they are seeking the popular mandate is also very different. So how much faith and trust do the voters demonstrate in what the two major parties are offering is what this election will actually finally demonstrate to us.
Continue to go to our panelists. Sanjay Singh wanted a point to make on Ayodhya. As we speak to the sitting MLA in Ayodhya, I want to cut across before that to my colleague Abhishek, who's joining us from Sultanpur. Abhishek, standing, and if we can get voter reactions this morning.
Well, absolutely, Preeti. As I was also telling you earlier, that is very important where I am right now. 5 seats are at stake, and as far as the mandate is concerned, it's going to be very significant for both the parties because BJP is in strong fight here, and as far as the Samajwadi Party is concerned, they are also giving a tough fight with fielding some significant candidate. Let me show you the visuals first. Voters are coming. They are coming one by one, although not very much in rush. Ma'am, आपका नाम क्या है?
राजेश्वरी मिश्रा।
अच्छा, आपने वोट कर दिया है कि अभी करेंगे?
अभी करेंगे।
अच्छा, क्या सुल्तानपुर में क्या काम वाम हुआ है, क्या मुद्दे हैं आपको लग रहे, क्या सोच के वोट करेंगे आज आप?
बहुत काम किया। बहुत काम किया।
काम हुआ है यहाँ पे। अच्छा, महंगाई को लेकर के कुछ है क्या समस्या आप लोगों को? महंगाई वगैरह
महंगाई तो है।
आपका क्या नाम है मैडम? आपका क्या नाम है?
शैल मिश्रा।
शैल जी, बताइए क्या कैसा सुल्तानपुर में कैसा माहौल है, क्या कुछ काम हुआ है, मुद्दे क्या है यहाँ के?
यहाँ के मुद्दे बहुत अच्छे हैं, काम बहुत सा हुआ है, गरीबों के लिए काफी हो रहा है।
अच्छा, रोजगार को लेकर के कई तरह के लोग सवाल कर रहे हैं, उसको लेकर के आपको लग रहा है मुद्दा है चुनाव में?
हाँ, दिखाई पड़ रहा है, नजर में आ रहा है कि इसके लिए बेरोजगार वालों के लिए है।
अच्छा, लेकिन काफी ज्यादा भीड़ नहीं है, तो ऐसा ही रहता है सुल्तानपुर में या अभी ऐसा क्योंकि दोपहर हो रहा है इसीलिए?
अभी धूप हो रही है ना, अब शाम को 4 बजे से अब भीड़ होगी काफी, आप देखिएगा।
Certainly, Preeti, these are the voters, and you have just heard, because it's a very hot day today, so the numbers are not very aggressive, but consistently they are coming. And as far as the voting trends are concerned, it is we have just got to know that around 24% is the voting percentage in Sultanpur as of now, 11 a.m. So it remains to be seen what will be the total turnout, but we're expecting that at least it should cross 55 to 60% by the end of the day. But
big stalwarts, Keshav Prasad Maurya, Deputy CM, 12 seats, Prayagraj goes to poll today. Give us the latest.
That's right. Polling, in fact, has been very slow over here. We are, of course, waiting to see if it indeed picks up. As you know, across the Uttar Pradesh elections so far, in the past 4 phases as well, polling in comparison to numbers in 2017 has been at least 2 to 3% lower. Now, what does that mean? We'll eventually find out. But the BJP, of course, putting all their might into these elections, especially now when the eastern belt of Uttar Pradesh goes to polls. Today, of course, like you mentioned, Siddharth Singh is testing his fate from Allahabad West again. He is, of course, the minister in the government of Uttar Pradesh. He was holding the portfolio for MSME. Yeah, I asked him, of course, about jobs and joblessness, which is one of the concerns that you, in fact, hear, the refrain that you hear from the youth of the state when they talk to you, and that is a huge concern. But he, of course, spouted some figures. He gave some figures saying this is the number of jobs that we've created, MSME figures, and that is what matters at the end of the day. They also, of course, will cite NCRB data and, of course, harp on the fact that law and order has been very much under control in the tenure of the Bharatiya Janata Party since 2017 to now. So basically, that is what the BJP is campaigning on. But we do know, as you've been on the ground yourself, Preeti, and we have been, of course, going across the state of Uttar Pradesh from the western belt now towards the eastern belt of Uttar Pradesh. It is, of course, boiling down to the caste arithmetic on the ground, whether that is going to work for not. So is the Brahmin vote going to the Bharatiya Janata Party now as the eastern belt votes? What about the non-Yadav OBCs? What about the allegation against the chief minister that he was propagating quote-unquote Thakurwad? Is that going to be something that's going to hurt the BJP's prospects in this belt of eastern Uttar Pradesh? That remains to be seen, and that's why, as I was earlier pointing out, the BJP is going to go all guns blazing into these final phases of the elections, because it's not going to be something that they're going to just sit comfortably about, because they do realize that the competition is extremely stiff and it is going to boil down to the last vote, which is cast.
All right, and that last vote will be cast come the 7th of March, and 10th is when the counting happens. Appreciate you joining us, Pallavi. We're going to continue to come back to you for more from Prayagraj, but let's cut across back right now to Ayodhya, where my colleague Aishwarya is joining us. But before that, we heard from the sitting MLA of the BJP, who's been refielded again from Ayodhya Sadar city. But let's listen in right now to who's he up against. My colleague Kumar Abhishek speaking to the SP candidate.
समाजवादी पार्टी से उम्मीदवार हैं, पूर्व मंत्री रह चुके हैं, पहले विधायक रह चुके हैं, और इस बार कहा यह जा रहा है कि अयोध्या में बेहद ही कड़ा मुकाबला है। कड़ा मुकाबला है या जीत रहे हैं?
कहीं कड़ा फड़ा कुछ नहीं ना, सब लोग यही भाजपा साइकिल चल रहा है चारों तरफ। कहीं किसी बूथ पे आप चले जाइए, साइकिल बम्पर चल रही है। योगी सरकार का जो जुल्म, अत्याचार और अहंकार था, जो भ्रष्टाचार था, आज अयोध्या के देवतुल क्षेत्र वासियों के आशीर्वाद से उनके अहंकार, भ्रष्टाचार, लूट पर साइकिल चढ़ के दौड़ गई है।
अयोध्या है, यहाँ तो राम मंदिर बन रहा है।
अरे तो राम का कोई पट्टा उनके पिताजी का क्या? राम हमारे भी तो हैं, किसी का दाखिल खाली नहीं है, राम हमारे भी हैं। हम भी राम की पूजा करते हैं, हम भी हनुमान गढ़ी जाते हैं, उनका पट्टा नहीं है। और राम मंदिर बन रहा है, भव्य बने, सुंदर बने, अच्छा बने। हर अयोध्या वासी नहीं, पूरा देशवासी चाहते हैं। लेकिन अयोध्या के साथ साथ जो अयोध्या का व्यापार है, अयोध्या का व्यापारी है, अयोध्या में प्रभु श्री राम की प्रजा है, अयोध्या की आवाम है, अयोध्या का किसान नौजवान है, उसका भी भला होना चाहिए।
All right, a very combative SP candidate. Let's cut across right now to Ayodhya, the main city, the southern seat, where joining me from there is my colleague Aishwarya Paliwal. Aishwarya, try and get in voter reactions on what are the issues that they're voting on this time around?
Well, Preeti, let me tell you, at the moment we don't see a lot of voters queuing up. We just see the security personnel here, and one of the reasons why, what we are understanding at the moment, why we don't see a lot of voter turnout is because of the heat. However, let me tell you, if we talk about all the districts here, Ayodhya has voted almost 10% in the morning. We did see quite a lot of people here. We just heard Kumar Abhishek, our colleague, speak with Tej Narayan, who's the Samajwadi Party candidate. He had lost this seat last time in 2017 by 50,000 votes. Now, will this time Samajwadi Party, will they be able to sweep all the seats like they did in 2012 is the big question. But yes, the one thing which the people are talking about, and you walk onto the streets, Preeti, you'll be able to see people are happy with the kind of work that has happened with regards to Ram Temple. It's not just that, people also believe once the temple will be up and running, they will see the economy of this place also grow up. So people are banking on that. But we have seen the way in which the people here have voted. 2012, we saw all the seats winning were won by the Samajwadi Party. 2017, all of them by BJP. So this is a very tricky situation for both the parties this time around. Preeti.
Aishwarya reporting from Ayodhya. We're going to try and get in a word, but could be worrying. Because it seems that the voting percentage is falling right now from the morning. Will it pick up? Sandeep Shastri had earlier stated that traditionally this phase, it's lesser in terms of voting percentage than other phases. We're going to continue to check and keep a keen eye on that. But let's cut across to our other reporter. Abhishek Anand joins us from Gonda. Abhishek Anand, this at one time used to be the stronghold of the Samajwadi Party till 2012. 2017, all 5 seats in Gonda were swept away by the BJP.
Well, Preeti, we are in Gonda city right now, and this is a clash of titans. Former Minister Pandit Singh's family member Suraj Singh is contesting from Samajwadi Party, and the current member of parliament from the nearby area Kasarganj, Brij Bhushan Singh's son Pratik Bhushan Singh is the incumbent MLA here. So the caste equation is also very critical for both the parties, as this is a Brahmin dominated area. Also there are Srivastavs and Muslims are in this locality. So if you see the kind of politics which is going around in UP, the anti-BJP sentiment in the Brahmins, and in the kind of things which have been woven around, there are voters, non-Yadav, non-Jat, OBC voters here, which are in huge number. All the 7 seats are currently with BJP, with Samajwadi Party trying to gain some of the seats from here. The clash is very interesting, as a couple of days back during a rally of Suraj Singh, it was alleged that Pakistan Zindabad kind of slogans were raised and an FIR was lodged. So the entire mudslinging is on, and a very intense fight is going on here in Gonda. Preeti.
Intense fight. Abhishek, would you be able to get us some voter reactions this morning?
Yes, certainly. I will try to catch up with some voters. भाई साहब, यहाँ पर वोटिंग कैसे चल रही है? सुबह से आप अभी आए हैं वोट डालने, कितने लोग आपके परिवार से अभी तक वोट डाल चुके हैं?
Well, I think most of them have given their votes, और सब कुछ अच्छा चल रहा है। जहाँ तक हम लोग देख रहे हैं कि we are going to build a great nation, and for that we are thinking to vote cast over.
What are the issues when you started from home to cast your vote? What were the issues inside your mind Can you please tell us?
Basically, I am thinking for the development, and for the sake of development, you are coming here right now. Earlier the roads were not good here; they are quietly damaged. So I will go for Pratik only because Pratik is very good.
So this is the kind of situation in the urban areas. There are rural areas also. The bipolar fight is very intense because in the city area particularly there is a huge number of Muslim voters also which are thronging at the polling booths. You can see right now a queue right there at the polling booth, and the security arrangements are also adequate in this Gonda Assembly constituency.
All right,
Preeti,
appreciate you joining us. All right, Abhishek Anand, appreciate you joining us. Let's cut across right now to Sanjay Singh. Sanjay, you wanted to come in, Mr. Singh, on the curious case of Ayodhya, because what we were discussing earlier, in 2017, yes, the BJP swept all 5 seats, but if you look at it, Ayodhya has always bucked the Hindutva trend. Peak of the Ram Mandir agitation, Ayodhya was with the Samajwadi Party.
Yeah, 2012, as you said, and as your correspondent said, also figures say, Samajwadi Party swept this area. That was because of a reason, because BJP had promised temple, and temple was not happening in 2012. UP government was there, BHP government was here, and NDA's in its 6th-year rule was not perceived during Vajpayee era doing much about the temple, which I had seen by myself when I had visited that area during those elections and prior to that. Now that temple promise has been fulfilled, post Supreme Court verdict, anybody who has gone Ayodhya before and is going now or has gone now can see the change, right from the time he starts from Lucknow to somewhere halfway from the highway, the landscape had changed. What has happened, somebody was referring as to when temple actually becomes, the economy of that area would transform. I would say the economy and society of that area has already started transforming. You see great big hotels, fancy showrooms, smaller shops. Inside the Ramjap, when you proceed towards Ram Janambhoomi area, Babri Masjid area, once that was called, now Ram Janambhoomi area, Mangarhi, the sheer number of visitors have gone up in multiples. That again is bringing business to people. Talk to any local, you will know what kind of transformation is going there. I would say, as had happened in Gurgaon once upon a time when Millennium City was established, that kind of prosperity is coming to local farmers. Of course, they are not spending the way farmers here spend that time and made national headlines. But economy is transforming. What has happened, that construction of temple has not created a frenzy that was there in the 1990s. And subsequent to 2002, when BJP launched power, there was disappointment with the BJP government. The satisfaction is there, not the frenzy. Temple construction has not, in a way, created a wave as one would have imagined to see, but there is a great deal of satisfaction on that count. And therefore, Yogi Adityanath or Prime Minister Modi's or whosoever from the BJP ranks, having that fulfilled that promise, people at large are broadly satisfied with this government on that broad promise, the Hindutva count. From after there on, this development thing begins, where I said two most important things which I noticed across the state, from western as it has progressed now to eastern areas other than now to western. Bundelkhand, of course, is going to the polls. That again is a strong BJP area in these elections also. You see people talk about two things in particular. One, law and order. As they say, gunda gardi khatam. This applies not against one community, but community at large, because not everywhere gundas are from one particular community. And second, this free ration to the poor. That is working miracles. I don't know how long the government center and the state can sustain free ration to the poor. Poor, again, the umbrella of poor is very vast. Anybody who has a ration card gets ration. From there on, I think these are two strongest plans where Yogi Adityanath and BJP are seeking votes.
All right, okay. Sandeep Shastri, coming back to you, we were talking about Ayodhya, we were talking about the temple card. It's a card and possibly a check which needs to be also encashed in 2024. Because that is when possibly when Narendra Modi goes to vote, he will be riding on the same plank.
I think the comment made by the earlier expert about the numbers increasing in Ayodhya and its impact on the local business, I think is a valid point. But I would go back to the point I made earlier. The BJP has already secured the vote of those who wanted to commend it for what has happened in Ayodhya. I believe that that vote has plateaued. And being the ruling party in Uttar Pradesh, I think what would be more crucial now is the way the voters perceive the performance of the government which has been in power there for the last 5 years. That I think will be critical in terms of the BJP vote and the strengthening of that vote. And on the other hand, how much does the Samajwadi Party's campaign about the government's performance in the last 5 years and larger issues, what is the impact of that in terms of the voters' perception would be critical. And Preeti, going to your larger question, I think 2024 is still very far away. And what are going to be the issues which will define and decide that election? I think it's a little early now to talk about it. We saw in 2019 what happened in 2017, 2018. We said there would be a range of other issues that would come to play. And suddenly by the month of February and March of 2019, the agenda totally changed. So 2024 also is, I think, a distance away. So it may be a little
too early to
premature to talk about what would be the elections, what would be the issues.
No, you know, my limited link to that, Mr. Shastri, was the fact that 2024 is the deadline when the mandir will be ready. So the whole optics of the mandir being ready and then going into election is going to be different, and that was my limited point there. But Abhishek,
that's it. Yeah.
Abhishek, my colleague needs to quickly shift his location to, and he's going to leave. But before that, Abhishek, I'm going to come to you. One final word. What are voters saying right now in Sultanpur at the polling booth that you're standing? What are the issues this time around?
Well, Preeti, as far as development work is concerned, Sultanpur has got their share. They got the Purvanchal Expressway. We can remember the massive, the huge air show which happened on the airstrip was also in Sultanpur. And there has been a lot of work as far as infrastructure and the other, work is concerned. But majorly, the problem is, of course, about the stray cattle menace. That is a very big problem here as well. People are speaking about the issue of unemployment. Most of the youngsters we have spoken, they are saying they wanted more of the concern. And also, inflation is also playing a very important role this time. But looking at the questions on the ground, as I was telling you earlier also, it has benefited the BJP. 4 MLAs in 2017, only one for the Samajwadi Party. But this time, BJP changed one of the MLAs, also tried to get the people convinced with the work and the governance model which the Yogi Adityanath government is projecting on the ground. So those are the core issues. But as far as the mandate is concerned, Sultanpur is going to be very significant. Menaka Gandhi is the member of parliament from this particular seat. So that is also an influence for the voters. But these issues are going to be very important. And the voting trend, which is now approximately around 24% in Sultanpur, is showing that people are coming out, they are casting their vote. It is not very aggressive but consistent, and it remains to be seen by the end of the day how much polling will be done in this particular seat where the fight is.
All right, Abhishek, you bring up the issue of Menaka Gandhi as well, her son from Pilibhit. Varun Gandhi, strangely, when Pilibhit went to vote in Phase 4, was campaigning not for the BJP but the rival there. So a lot of dynamics, wheels within wheels turning where the BJP is also concerned. But let's get in more political reactions coming in, and we cut across to our reporter Pollumi, and Javed Ansari wanted to make a point.
से आप विधायक हैं और दूसरी 2 बार आपकी बेटी यहां से विधायक रही हैं। किस तरीके का माहौल इस बार चुनाव में आप देखते हैं? क्योंकि बीजेपी कह रही है कि प्रतापगढ़ की सातों सीटें जो हैं वो और अपना दल जीतने जा रहे हैं।
बीजेपी से बड़ी झूठी पार्टी दुनिया में कोई नहीं है। इसका नाम ही मैंने रखा है भारतीय झूठी पार्टी। छोड़िए उसको। मैं सिर्फ एक चीज कहने जा रहा हूं, बहुत स्पष्ट रूप से कह रहा हूं कि इस चुनाव में भारतीय जनता पार्टी सैकड़ा का आंकड़ा नहीं छूने जा रही। ये मैं 5वें का रुझान और 4 के परिणाम को एक एक जगह बात करने के बाद अपने 42 साल के अनुभव पर कर रहा हूं। जहां तक सवाल है इनके जाने की वजह छुट्टा जानवर, महंगाई, बेरोजगारी और कोरोना की बदइंतजामी है।
42 साल का आपका राजनीतिक अनुभव है, क्या कांग्रेस को 42 सीटें मिलेंगी?
कांग्रेस को तो उतनी सीटें मिलेंगी जिससे लोग चौंकेंगे और हम सरकार बनाने जा रहे हैं प्रियंका गांधी के नेतृत्व में।
All right, let's cut across right now to Pallavi Saha, my colleague who's reporting from Prayagraj. Pallavi, as we've been covering this election, I've got to say if there are local issues, for me there have been, Rashan, Suraksha and Sand. Basically Rashan, security and Chutta Janwar. These have been local issues on which this election has been fought. What has been your understanding?
Well, definitely, those are the issues, and as far as Rashan and Suraksha are concerned, they're definitely the planks of the Bharatiya Janata Party going into these elections. Law and order especially top of the agenda for the Bharatiya Janata Party, and that is something that they've been hopping on in terms of a campaign, especially throughout, but more so now. When they go into the eastern belt, that is going to be the election campaign of the Bharatiya Janata Party. Remember that the Bharatiya Janata Party said that, for instance, very recently, midway through the campaign, they allege that Akhilesh Yadav had terror links, that he was in fact entertaining the father of someone who has been convicted in the Ahmedabad serial blast case. So he has terror links. The Akhilesh Yadav, of course, dismissed those allegations, did not respond to the specific charges of his photograph being seen with the kin of one of the accused and convicted in the case, but dismissed those charges. But that has been the BJP's plank, and that is the plank that they're going to go ahead with as well. Rashan, as you rightly pointed out, that is something that the Bharatiya Janata Party is also hoping will, of course, appeal to the electorate in the lower rung of strata of society. That is something that they're hoping on. And yes, the people on the ground are talking about Rashan. Akhilesh, of course, is saying on the other side that ask them since when they've been getting Rashan. ये तो बस अभी शुरुआत हुई है और ये election खत्म होते ही बंद हो जाएगी. So that is what he's trying to tell the people, that this is just a poll, a sort of incentive which is being given to you. It will not last very long. This is just an election jumla as far as the BJP's campaign is concerned. So that has been, of course, the BJP's campaign. Stray cattle, of course, another agenda which the Samajwadi Party RLD combine has been bringing up. We saw it play up in a very, very big manner as the third phase of the election happened and the fourth phase of the election happened as well. So that is something which resonates with the people on the ground, the farming community on the ground, and hence the BJP was very wary about it. They, of course, tried to put out as much data as possible to say that we've dealt with this problem, we've built gaushalas, we are incentivizing those gaushalas as well, we are tagging the cattle as well, so that in case they run astray, they can be found, and the gaushala concerned, whoever has to, of course, keep the cattle together is, of course, held responsible for the same. So they're coming out with a counter campaign, but that's not resonating as much on the ground. So BJP has Rashan and law and order going for it. Stray cattle is definitely an agenda which is working for the Samajwadi Party RLD combine. Preeti?
All right, so these are local issues, but like many suggest, when it comes down to Uttar Pradesh, the election rests on the fulcrum of caste metric as well as religion. Will polarization work, or will it caste which will cut religion? Javed Ansari wanted to make a point earlier. Over to you, Javed.
No, I was on the point of Ayodhya. I do believe that there is still some traction left for Ayodhya, especially once the temple is complete. Right now it's under construction. Once it becomes a reality, once that structure comes into being, and that I am told, Sanjay Singh would know better, but I am told that it's scheduled to complete in early 2024, just a couple of months before the general elections. And once that structure is built, that huge structure comes up, I do believe that it will carry a large amount of traction, especially in the area, in and around that area.
All right, okay. So that was a comment that Javed wanted to make on where elections are concerned in 2024, because 2024 is when the Ram Mandir will actually come into play, and possibly that's a check which the government will encash then, because that would be Narendra Modi going into election at the back of the temple now, the physical form, the optics of it all coming in together. But, as we now wind down, let's quickly encapsulate. I'm cutting across to Sandeep Shastri first. Sandeep Shastri, Phase 5 what we've seen from phase 1 to phase 5, as we built into it, one thing is very clear, that there seems to be no sweep. There seems to be, no wave of sorts. How do you gauge with what's going on? And do you reckon that this election is going to come down to the wire in the last 2 phases or not?
Preeti, we have been noticing for some time now that there is often no visible wave in the election. The voter has learned to keep the cards very close to their chest in terms of who they are going to vote for. Undoubtedly, as every phase has gone along, this has become a stiffer and tighter battle. And this is something which even your ground reports have been saying. So this is a tough fight, and today's phase and the next few phases are going to be crucial in deciding which party secures the mandate in UP. And I think many people thought when this election started that this would be this would not have such a keen contest, but as we move along, the contest has become keen. The fight has been clear between the BJP and SP. I think other parties have been pushed a bit to the back burner, with the BJP and the SP being the critical competitors. And the fact that you have this critical contest between these two parties suggests that you are going to have a clear verdict at the end of this election.
I want to cut across to Aishwarya Paliwal, getting us reactions from Ayodhya, and then we'll go across to Sanjay Singh.
अभी देखिए अखिलेश यादव कई सारे तर्कों के साथ सामने आ रहे हैं, कह रहे हैं कि इस बार साइकिल ही जीतेगी। आपको लगता है पांचों की पांचों सीटें अगर अयोध्या की बात करें तो भारतीय जनता पार्टी जीत पाएगी? जीत लेगी, पांचों जीतेंगी। और अखिलेश यादव जिस तरीके के स्टेटमेंट्स देते हैं कि साइकिल ही है अब की बार,
पुरानी परंपरा इस प्रकार का बयान देने की, उनके पिता श्री मुलायम सिंह जी देते रहे ऐसे बयानबाजी, और उनसे आगे बढ़ करके बयानबाजी कर रहे हैं, लेकिन जमीनी हकीकत कुछ नहीं है।
Sanjay Singh, you're very clear that this is, an election which is going towards the BJP, because the BJP, as per you, are fighting it on various issues. Do you reckon that the BJP is comfortable as we speak, or do you think the last 2 phases, this phase, the BJP hoping to consolidate, but it'll come down to the last few phases, 3rd and the 7th?
Preeti, yes, I'm very clear. First 2 phases was challenging to the BJP. Second phase in particular, where I think Samajwadi Party had a good hold and has performed in second phase very well. Beyond that, from 3rd phase onwards, the election has moved towards BJP. First phase, I think, again, BJP had some seats. Not as last time, 51, of course, was not maintainable seat in these elections. 3rd phase onwards, 4th phase, and now as we go in 5th phase, BJP has a very clear lead. 6th and 7th phase, remember 6th and 7th phase are areas where Prime Minister Modi and Yogi Adityanath is also there. Prime Minister Modi, in most likelihood, would be in Banaras for the last phase, as he was there in Banaras in 2017. Also his parliamentary constituency. So as an MP, he also needs to go to his constituency. He is going to be there. That would galvanize the polls, of course, but that is last phase. That is not the first phase. The BJP has not maintained the lead. Last phase, Prime Minister Modi going to Banaras, I think, would not be a best of idea. But he is going, I think he would go there. Now BJP has established a clear lead. These elections, remember, Preeti, as I have seen on the ground, people think from outside that this election, Yogi Adityanath and BJP leaders are talking on issues which broadly sentiments to the borders on Hindutva. But fact remains, on the ground, this is more about what Yogi Adityanath has delivered and what Akhilesh Yadav had not delivered, or what were things that went heavily against Akhilesh Yadav. In 2017, all communities, cutting across all communities, even Brahmins voted for for Akhilesh Yadav. Even in areas, BJP workers voted for Akhilesh Yadav. And 2017 elections, Samajwadi Party got seats which it had never got in its history. 2019 elections, 2012 election, 2017 election, Samajwadi Party got at its worst. This time, Samajwadi Party, of course, is going to gain from where it was, but not in terms of numbers where they are going to get in a situation whereby there is a hung assembly or Samajwadi Party is going to be in power. Yogi Adityanath is going to return to power. with comfortable majority. BJP is going to return to power with comfortable majority. Election as it was, BJP now has a clear lead for 6th and 7th phases.
All right, so Sanjay Singh has pretty much called the election. He thinks very clearly that Yogi has it in the bag. Before the next two phases, it's rather brave, Sanjay, to actually be able to stick your neck out on that. Yes, you want to say something? Go ahead, Sanjay.
Yes, Preeti, I'm very clear. I have gone on the ground. I have also been elections in Uttar Pradesh for long. Because I've covered so many elections. Last election also, when I called election early, people actually, there were too much of debate. My friends and my colleagues calling me. And now I think the trend is very clear. People are very clear. Samajwadi Party supporters are also very aggressive. They talk about things, but beyond the point, Akhilesh Yadav is not adding to the social constituency which he had in 2017. Added some, but not much. That could bring him to power.
But Sanjay Singh, the only thing I can say is it's very brave to stick your neck out and say that this is what's going to happen. Sandeep Shastri, do you think a little premature of, Javed, I'm coming right back to you, but Sandeep Shastri, a little premature for Sanjay Singh to call out this election before Yeah, go ahead.
Sanjay Singh ji may have his own reasons and facts to say what he's saying. But I would be a little more cautious and say that the fight is still on. And as a election analyst for the last 3 decades, I have believed that exercising an element of caution on this matter is very important, because to decipher the mind of the Indian voter is an extremely complex process. And I would give it to the wisdom of the Indian voter to keep political parties, leaders, and analysts and viewers of your channel on the tender hooks till the end, till the last vote is counted. So I would hesitate to hazard a guess at this stage.
All right, okay. Javed Ansari, are you going to be as brave as Sanjay Singh, or you're going to, wait for the next 2 phases to kick in?
No. I cede that ground to my dear friend Sanjay Singh. I would not rush in where angels fear to tread. I do believe that this has been a bipolar election between the BJP and the SP. The BJP has a fight on its hands. It's far from decided. The BJP's main trump card, which is one of its main trump cards, which is of polarizing this election on communal lines, on religious lines, has not worked. Akhilesh has managed to broad base his support base. Whether that is broad enough to dethrone the BJP, we'll know only on the 10th. But yes, certainly the smaller parties will fall by the wayside when push comes to shove. This is a battle which will go down to the wire. It will be very foolhardy to stick one's neck out and say anything for sure. But one thing is for certain, that this is a battle that the BJP will have to fight till the very last seat.
All right, what we're going to do is we're not going to hedge any bets. We're going to cover it phase by phase. Appreciate all 3 gentlemen for joining us this morning. Sanjay, we'll get you back, as the phases progress, especially on the 10th of March, and you could actually have bragging rights if you're, if it actually is to what you seem to suggest, because you're the only one who's actually calling it out right now. With that, it's a wrap on our rolling coverage right here, but we're going to continue to get our viewers the latest updates. Now, this election is building up to the last 2 phases, viewers, and that is a phase which is going to be, in terms of the campaigning, will climax. Why do I say it? Over the course of the next 1 week, you will see the Prime Minister move bag and baggage for 3 days to his constituency of Banaras. From the 3rd is when the 6th phase kicks in. The Prime Minister is going to be on a heavy, a high octane campaigning spree in Banaras. So will Akhilesh, so will Priyanka. So the biggest names in terms of this election here, presuming that with at least what we're picking up from ground, it seems to be a bipolar contest between the Samajwadi Party and the BJP. But it's all going to climax in East UP as this election has gone phase by phase. Keep a keen eye on all developments right here on India Today as we cover the next 2 phases. By 6 p.m. today, the 5th phase of polling, 61 constituencies would have voted.